You know, I've never been a big fan of these unboxing videos that are popular on YouTube, but yet here I am doing one. And the product we're going to unbox today is the Blackmagic Design ATEM 2ME Production Studio 4K Switcher. How's that for a mouthful? So, hey everyone, my name's Doug Johnson. I'm with Doug Johnson Productions in Orem, Utah. We do live event video production, things like concerts, business conferences, sporting events, those sorts of things. And for the last about year, I've been using the Blackmagic Design ATEM 1ME Production Studio 4K Switcher, the smaller version of this guy. And it's served its purpose quite well. However, with the company growing and getting new events, basically outgrowing the old switcher. And so I decided it was time to upgrade to the 2ME version. So without further ado, let's just dive right into here and take a look at what we got. This is a real unboxing. I haven't opened this at all. It's still got the shrink wrap on it. Unlike a lot of the unboxing videos you see, where they have already taken it out of the box and played with it for a little while before the video is shot. But here we are. This is legit. We really are opening this for the very first time. Just driving on my doorstep a couple hours ago. Alright, so nice big box. Not too heavy. Open this sucker up, see what we got inside. So, as I mentioned, outgrowing the previous switcher. The 10 inputs that it had were fine for a lot of events that I'm doing, but I find you run out of inputs pretty quickly. Say you're doing an event with 6 cameras. Six is probably about typical for the events that I shoot. I've got four-man cameras, 2 PTZ, or maybe 7 where I've got 1 or 2 cameras that are locked down. That doesn't leave you a lot of inputs for things like video playback, graphics, especially because considering graphics very often requires 2 inputs with both the fill and the key. So I was running out of inputs. I'd have to reroute things on the fly in order to make sure everything was going wrong. So, alright, so inside the box here we've got the switcher itself packed in styrofoam. There is this little booklet. Basically all it has in it, an SD card that has the software and the manual for the device. I've never used those because it's always out of date compared to what's on their website. There's the switcher itself. And that styrofoam. Now I'll take a look at this thing. Right, so there it is. It's 2 rack units high. If I was going to guess, I'd say it weighs about 8-9 pounds or so. Lots of inputs and outputs on the back. One thing about this one, compared to the other models, it has dual power supply, so redundant power supply. So if one power source goes out, you can actually have this plugged into a second power source and keep right on trucking. Yeah, 1 HDMI input. There's your 20 video inputs right there. A reference in for synchronized Genlock cameras. 6 auxiliary outputs, a preview output, output for the second Mix Effects engine, 2 program outputs for the main, and then 1 additional. Oh, there's one on the bottom. This is down converted to HD. So if you're switching 4K, this one always outputs an HD signal. That comes in very handy. And then 2 redundant program outputs as well as an HDMI program output. The 2 multi-view SDI outputs and HDMI outputs for the multi-view as well. Across the top here, got an input for timecode, analog audio on XLRs and RCAs, timecode output, 2 XLR outputs for monitoring audio, 2 outputs for program audio, and then talkback in and out. So if you've seen the other Blackmagic switchers, this is essentially mostly the same. It adds a few things. It adds the talkback in and out. Blackmagic does talkback audio on channels 15 and 16. of the SDI signal. So if you happen to be using Blackmagic cameras, you can actually do your talkback through the switcher itself. Unfortunately, it's not compatible with their studio converter, and talkback converter, and camera converter products. So it's not going to be of much use to me, but it is there. Okay, got a power cord here. I'll actually plug this thing in. I'm not going to be able to see a whole lot here because I'm not going to take the time to hook up any video sources. I don't know if you can hear that on camera, but the fan comes on rather loudly at first. Back this up a little bit so you can see it better. So the other reason I decided to get this one is because this has two mix effects engines in it, which basically means it's like two separate switchers that have the same collection of sources, so you can create two separate mixes. And that might not necessarily make a lot of sense for a lot of people, but if you're doing something like doing one mix for going to a recording, or an internet stream, or something that's going up on a projector in the venue, or a big screen or whatever, it's very often nice to have a second mix effects engine to be able to create a separate mix. Like, it's kind of an extreme example, but if you had a camera pointed at a projection screen and you had that going out to the live internet, you wouldn't necessarily want that same image to be projected up on the projector. Otherwise you get that image inside of an image inside of an image thing. You should want to avoid that. But basically, having two MEs allows you to create two separate mixes. You can also take the output of the second ME and treat it as a source for the first ME. So if you had like an assistant director, assistant technical director, building, say, a collection of sequence from different cameras, they could do that on the second ME, and then when they're ready to go live, the technical director for the first ME can switch directly to the second ME and just go with it. So, anyways, having a second ME is going to be really handy. A lot of gigs I do, there is a projector. Very often there's a projector involved, and it's very nice to be able to create a second mix, video mix, from the same camera sources. Another good example is in a venue. It might not necessarily make a lot of sense to have never go to a wide shot on a projector, because that's basically the same thing as what people are already seeing. So you can always stay with tighter shots on the projector, whereas on an internet stream or recording, it might make sense to show a wide shot to establish what's going on. Okay, now, switcher's booted. These things do take a little while to boot. I think this actually takes a little longer than the 1ME version, but I'll have to time it to know that for sure. This has 6 auxiliary outputs on it. My previous one had 3, so you can actually select any of those auxes and choose a source. So for example, if I wanted to have color, I go to aux 6, color 1 go to aux 6, or color 2 go to aux 6. I just press those buttons. It's important to note for people who've never used the Blackmagic stuff, switchers, that you can't switch preview and program from the front buttons on this series. The brand new, what do they call it, the Television Studio HD, you can do switching from the front panel, but this one you cannot. You do have to have either one of their broadcast panels, or you switch from their software. You can't do any switching at all from the front panel. You can switch the sources for auxes, but you can't switch the main preview and program for either the primary ME or the second ME. Aside from being able to switch your different aux sources on here, there isn't much you can do on the front panel. One significant upgrade on this versus the 1ME version is the LCD screen. The LCD screen on the 1ME version is pretty lousy, to be honest. It's nice to be able to preview something, but you're not going to be able to get an accurate representation of your exposure, colors, any of that kind of stuff. It's just meant as a preview, whereas the screen on this one is actually quite decent. Even from the angle I'm looking at it here, basically straight above, it looks pretty good. They use the same screen on this as they do the 40x40 Smart Video Hub. I've done a review video of that, and it looks pretty good. Good viewing angles, good contrast, good color. So it's nice to have that upgrade. You can dedicate one of your aux outputs to being just a way to preview different sources on the switcher. Say for example, hey, use aux6, I could preview any of my cameras right there on that screen. Same thing goes to the aux6 output, but if you're not really using that for anything, yeah, you actually preview your video sources right there on the screen. So, so between the additional inputs and the second ME, those are the main reasons. The other thing that this adds, and I may use from time to time, it's not something that's going to be common for the sort of stuff I do. There's what they call super source. It allows you to take up to 4 video sources and put them up on screen at the same time. So you've seen that on the news where they have 4 people involved in a conversation. They'll put their like picture in picture, but with up to 4 sources, and you can put a background behind that. So the 2ME version has that capability, whereas the 1ME version does not. So anyway, I'm trying to keep this video rather short, so this is going to be about it. Not super exciting on the unboxing. It's basically the switcher in styrofoam in a box, but let you guys know a little bit about the product and why I decided to go with this and upgrade from the 1ME version. So if you're interested in this or any of the other products that I talked about on my channel, or any video product whatsoever, making a purchase, use one of the links down below in the description. I really appreciate it. I get a few pennies on the dollar for each time you purchase through one of those links, and that helps me to get this equipment so that I can do these reviews. I'm paying for this stuff out of my own pocket. The companies are not sending this stuff to me on loan or otherwise. So if we want to review a product, I gotta buy it. So that's very helpful. Also, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I do try to answer questions as quickly as I can and as accurate as I can, and if I don't know the answer, I'll just tell you that. But otherwise, I hope I can help you out in some way. So be sure also to like and subscribe so you can be notified of other videos that are coming out. I've got some other ones coming. I'm going to be doing some reviews on some less expensive products here coming up. So anyway, I do appreciate you watching, and we'll talk to you later.